The silver ship hung motionless above Earth's atmosphere like a metal tear in the star-filled darkness. Inside, two young females knelt before the High Council of Valoria, their wrists bound with energy shackles that hummed softly in the silent chamber. Zara kept her eyes fixed on the polished floor, her blue-tinted skin pale with fear. Beside her, Lixa trembled slightly, her silver hair falling across her face like a curtain. They had been best friends since childhood, but now that friendship had become something more dangerous. Something the Valorian Empire called a disease. Citizen Zara 7749 and Lixa 3312. Commander Thex's voice echoed through the chamber, cold and mechanical. You stand accused of emotional contamination. The medical scanners have detected forbidden feelings between you. Love, they call it in the old languages, a weakness that nearly destroyed our ancestors. Zara finally looked up, her violet eyes meeting the commander's red ones. We cannot help what we feel, she whispered. Exactly, Commander Thex replied, standing from his throne-like chair. You are broken. Defective. In the old days, we would have executed you both to prevent the spread of this sickness. But the Council has decided to be merciful. He gestured to a viewing screen that showed a blue and green planet turning slowly in space. Earth looked peaceful from this distance, its white clouds swirling over vast oceans and brown continents. This primitive world will be your prison, Commander Thex continued. The creatures there still suffer from emotions like yours. You will have no technology, no weapons, no way to contact us. The wildlife will likely kill you within days. If not, the savage inhabitants surely will. Lixa raised her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. On Valoria, crying was considered the worst possible shame, but she could not stop herself. Please, she begged. We can be cured. We can learn to suppress these feelings. Too late, Commander Thex said. The contamination runs too deep. Guards prepare them for exile. 2 hours later, Zara and Lixa stood in a small escape pod, wearing simple gray clothes and carrying basic survival packs. The pod's door sealed shut with a hiss, and they felt the ship launch them toward the blue planet below. The landing was rough. The pod crashed through tall green trees and slammed into the soft earth of what humans called Oregon. When the door finally opened, the two aliens stumbled out into a world unlike anything they had ever experienced. The air smelled of pine needles and rain. Birds sang in the trees above them. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating patterns of light and shadow on the forest floor. After the sterile, controlled environment of their ship, it felt overwhelming. What do we do now? Lixa asked, her voice barely a whisper. Zara looked around at the endless forest. We survive, she said, though she had no idea how. They spent their first day walking through the trees, drinking water from a clear stream, and eating the emergency rations from their packs. Everything felt strange and new. The ground was soft under their feet instead of metal. The air moved and changed instead of staying perfectly still. Even the light was different, warm and golden instead of the harsh white lights of their ship. On their second day, they heard voices. Hello? A male voice called out. Is someone there? We saw the crash. Zara and Lixa grabbed each other's hands and hid behind a large tree. They had been taught that humans were violent savages who would kill strangers on sight. We're not going to hurt you, a female voice added. We just want to help. Two humans came into view through the trees. The male was tall with dark skin and kind brown eyes. He wore a green uniform with a badge that read Forest Ranger. The female was shorter with black hair and friendly smile. She carried a backpack full of scientific equipment. There, the female said, pointing to the crashed pod. Something definitely landed here. The male knelt beside the pod and examined the strange metal. This isn't from any aircraft I know, he said. Jake Martinez. He introduced himself to his companion, though they clearly knew each other well. Lisa Chen, the female replied. And I agree. This technology is way beyond anything we have. That was when Lixa sneezed. Both humans turned toward their hiding spot. Jake held up his hands to show he carried no weapons. Hey there, he said gently. It's okay. We're here to help. Slowly, Zara and Lixa stepped out from behind the tree. The humans' eyes widened when they saw the aliens' blue skin and violet eyes, but neither one screamed or ran away. Wow, Lisa whispered. You're not from around here, are you? Zara expected the humans to attack or capture them. Instead, Jake reached into his pack and pulled out a water bottle. You look thirsty, he said, offering it to them. The simple kindness of the gesture shocked both aliens. On Valoria, no one helped strangers without expecting something in return. Lisa slowly approached, moving carefully like she was dealing with frightened animals. "My name is Lisa," she said, pointing to herself. "Lisa," then she pointed to Jake. "Jake, Zara," the alien said hesitantly, pointing to herself. "Lixa," she added, indicating her companion. "Zara and Lixa," Jake repeated, smiling. Beautiful names. The humans spent the next hour trying to communicate through gestures and simple words. When they realized the aliens were cold and hungry, Jake immediately radioed his supervisor. "Hey, Patricia, it's Jake. I need you to prepare the guest rooms at the community center. We have 2 visitors who need help." "No, they're not lost hikers. I'll explain when we get there." Lisa gave the aliens energy bars from her pack and showed them how to eat them. She pointed to the sun and made a walking motion, indicating they should come with them to safety. As they walked through the forest toward the small town of Pine Creek, Zara and Lixa held hands tightly. They had expected to die on this strange world. Instead, they had found something they never expected to see again: kindness. "Why are they helping us?" Lixa whispered in their own language. "I do not know," Zara replied. "But maybe Commander Thex was wrong about this place." The town of Pine Creek appeared through the trees like something from a dream. Small houses lined clean streets. Gardens bloomed with colorful flowers. Children played in yards while their parents watched from porches. It looked nothing like the cold gray cities of Valoria. When the 4 of them walked down Main Street, people stopped and stared, but no one screamed or called for weapons. Instead, an elderly woman approached them with a plate of fresh cookies. "Welcome to Pine Creek," she said with a warm smile. "I'm Betty Morrison. You girls look like you could use a good meal." Mayor Patricia Wells met them at the community center, a plump woman with graying hair and laugh lines around her eyes. She took one look at the aliens and immediately began organizing help. "We'll need clothes that fit them," she said to Jake, "and food they can digest. Lisa, can you work on communication? I'll call Dr. Phillips at the university. She speaks about 12 languages." Within hours, the entire town had mobilized to help 2 complete strangers who had literally fallen from the sky. They offered food, clothing, and shelter without asking for anything in return. That night, as Zara and Lixa lay in real beds for the first time in days, they whispered to each other in the darkness. "These humans," Zara said. "They are not what we were told." "No," Lixa agreed. "They are something else entirely." Outside their window, the lights of Pine Creek twinkled like earthbound stars, and for the first time since their exile began, the 2 aliens felt something they had almost forgotten: hope. 3 weeks had passed since Zara and Lixa arrived in Pine Creek, and each day brought new surprises about human nature. The mayor had arranged for them to stay with local families while they learned about Earth culture. Zara lived with Jake Martinez, his wife Carmen, and their teenage son Danny. The Martinez family treated her like a daughter, even though she looked nothing like them. Carmen taught her to cook human food, laughing gently when Zara burned the eggs or added too much salt to the soup. "It's okay, honey," Carmen would say. "Everyone makes mistakes when they're learning." On Valoria, mistakes meant punishment. Here they meant learning opportunities. Lixa stayed with Lisa Chen and her elderly mother, Mrs. Chen, who spoke very little English but communicated perfectly through smiles and gentle touches. Mrs. Chen had fled her own country decades ago and understood what it meant to start over in a strange place. Dr. Nancy Phillips arrived from the university on a Tuesday morning, carrying boxes of language learning materials. She was a small woman with wild gray hair and bright green eyes that sparkled with curiosity. "Fascinating," she said after hearing the aliens speak their native language. "The grammar structure is completely unique. How long did it take your species to develop written communication?" Zara and Lixa exchanged glances. No one on Valoria had ever asked them questions like this. No one cared about their thoughts or opinions. We do not know," Zara said carefully in her improving English. "We were taught that questions about the past were forbidden." Dr. Phillips frowned. "Forbidden? But how do you learn without questions?" "We learned only what the council wanted us to know," Lixa explained. Questions meant thinking. Thinking led to emotions. Emotions are dangerous. "That's terrible," Dr. Phillips said softly. "Here on Earth, we believe questions are the most important thing. Questions lead to discovery." The weeks passed quickly as the aliens learned more about human society. They were amazed by how humans treated their elderly. On Valoria, old people were sent to isolation centers when they could no longer work. Here, Jake's family visited his grandfather every Sunday, bringing him homemade food and staying to hear his stories. Grandpa Joe fought in a war 60 years ago, Danny told them one afternoon. He saved like 20 guys from a burning building. Why do you care about old stories? Zara asked, genuinely confused. Because they're part of who we are, Danny replied. Grandpa's stories help us understand where we came from. Even more shocking was how humans treated their young. Danny often argued with his parents about rules and curfews, but Jake and Carmen never punished him with violence or isolation. Instead, they talked. I know you want to go to the party, Jake said one evening when Danny complained about having to be home by 10 o'clock. But you're 16 and I worry about you. When you're 18, you can make your own choices. Until then, it's my job to keep you safe. That's not fair, Danny protested. Maybe not, Jake agreed. But it's love. Zara watched this conversation with wide eyes. On Valoria, young people obeyed without question or faced severe consequences. The idea that parents could love their children while still setting boundaries was completely foreign. The aliens also witnessed something that changed their understanding of humans forever. Frank and Betty Morrison, the elderly couple who had welcomed them with cookies on their first day, were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. The entire town gathered in the community center for the party. Betty wore a white dress and Frank wore his best suit. They renewed their wedding vows in front of everyone, promising to love each other for whatever time they had left. 50 years, Betty said with tears in her eyes, and I'd choose you again every single day. Zara and Lixa sat in the back of the room holding hands and trying to understand what they were seeing. On Valoria, mating was assigned by the council based on genetic compatibility. Couples stayed together only long enough to produce offspring, then separated to prevent emotional attachment. Why do they choose to stay together? Lixa whispered to Dr. Phillips. Because they love each other, Dr. Phillips replied. Love isn't just a feeling here. It's a choice you make every day. But they are old, Zara said. They cannot produce children anymore. What is the purpose? Dr. Phillips smiled sadly. The purpose is happiness, companionship, taking care of each other. Love doesn't always have to have a practical purpose. After the party, Frank and Betty invited the aliens to their house for tea. Their home was filled with photographs spanning decades, pictures of their children, grandchildren, vacations, birthdays, and ordinary moments that they had chosen to remember. This is our life, Betty explained, pointing to a photo of Frank teaching their grandson to ride a bicycle. Every picture tells a story of someone we love. Frank showed them his workshop in the garage, where he built wooden toys for local children. I don't need to make these, he said, sanding a small car. But it makes me happy to see kids smile. You work for no payment? Zara asked. The payment is joy, Frank replied. Sometimes that's worth more than money. That evening, as they walked home through the quiet streets of Pine Creek, Zara and Lixa talked about what they had learned. These humans, Lixa said. They choose their emotions instead of being chosen by them. They make emotions into strength, Zara agreed. On Valoria, we were taught that love made people weak. But look at Frank and Betty. 50 years together made them stronger. They stopped walking and looked at each other under a streetlight. For the first time since arriving on Earth, they truly saw what they meant to each other. I choose you, Zara said quietly, repeating Betty's words from earlier. Every day, Lixa replied, understanding completely. They kissed for the first time since their exile, no longer ashamed of their feelings. Around them, the lights of Pine Creek glowed warmly, and somewhere in the distance they could hear Frank playing guitar while Betty sang along. The next morning brought news that would test everything they had learned about human courage. Jake's radio crackled to life with an emergency message. All units, we have a massive wildfire approaching from the east. Winds are shifting toward town. We need all available personnel for evacuation procedures. Zara and Lixa expected the humans to panic and flee. Instead, they watched in amazement as the entire community came together like a well-trained army. Jake kissed Carmen goodbye and headed to the fire station. Lisa loaded her truck with cages to rescue animals from the wildlife sanctuary. Dr. Phillips organized the library volunteers to pack important documents and books. What can we do to help? Zara asked Mayor Wells. You don't have to stay, the mayor replied. This isn't your fight. Yes, it is, Lixa said firmly. This is our home now. Mayor Wells smiled and handed them both emergency vests. Then welcome to your first Pine Creek crisis, girls. Let's get to work. As smoke began to appear on the horizon, Zara and Lixa joined their human neighbors in preparing to defend their town. They had been sent to Earth as punishment, but they were beginning to understand that they had actually been given a gift. They had found a place where love made people stronger, not weaker, where community meant family and family meant never facing danger alone. The fire was coming, but Pine Creek would not face it in fear. They would face it together with all the courage that love could provide. And for the first time in their lives, Zara and Lixa understood what it truly meant to be strong. The wildfire had been contained after 3 days of hard work, but it changed something fundamental in Zara and Lixa. They had seen humans risk their lives for strangers, work without sleep to save homes they didn't even own, and share their last bottles of water with anyone who needed them. Alex Rodriguez, a volunteer firefighter, had spent 18 hours straight fighting the blaze to save the Morrisons' house. When Betty tried to thank him, he just shrugged and said, "That's what neighbors do." Lisa had driven her truck directly into the danger zone to rescue a family of injured deer, refusing to leave even when the fire department ordered evacuation. They can't save themselves, she had told the fire chief. Someone has to speak for them. Most incredible of all, elderly Mr. Peterson had given up his spot in the last evacuation vehicle to make room for the aliens' crashed pod, which Dr. Phillips wanted to study. History is important, the old man had said, walking instead of riding to safety. Now, 2 weeks after the fire, life in Pine Creek had returned to normal. The aliens had settled into routines that felt almost natural. Zara helped Carmen in the family bakery each morning, learning to make bread and pastries. Lixa worked with Lisa at the wildlife sanctuary, caring for animals that had been injured in the fire. But their peaceful new life was about to be interrupted. Dr. Phillips had been working day and night to decode the technology in their crashed pod. She had managed to repair part of the communication system, though she warned them it could only receive messages, not send them. "I thought you might want to know if anyone from your world tries to contact you," she explained as she activated the device. The pod's small screen flickered to life and immediately began displaying Valorian text. Zara and Lixa read in growing horror as the message appeared. "Attention exiles Zara 7749 and Lixa 3312. Long-range scanners have detected your life. Signs on the primitive world designated Earthsol 3. You have 7 solar cycles to surrender yourselves for re-education therapy. Failure to comply will result in orbital bombardment of your location. The primitive inhabitants will be considered acceptable casualties in the elimination of the emotional contamination you represent." Lixa sank into a chair, her face pale. "They found us." "Re-education therapy," Zara whispered. "They will erase our memories, turn us into different people." Dr. Phillips frowned as she read the translation they provided. 7 solar cycles. That's about a week in Earth time. And they're threatening to destroy the town if you don't surrender? "Yes," Zara said. "The Council considers emotional contamination the greatest threat to Valorian society. They will kill thousands of humans to eliminate 2 defective individuals." "Over my dead body," said a voice from the doorway. They turned to see Jake, still wearing his forest ranger uniform, his face set in determined lines. Behind him stood Carmen, Lisa, Mayor Wells, and several other townspeople who had apparently been listening from the hallway. "You're not going anywhere," Carmen said firmly. "And they're not destroying our town." "You don't understand," Lixa protested. "Valorian ships have weapons that could turn this entire area into glass. They have technology beyond anything humans possess." "Maybe," Mayor Wells said. "But we have something they don't." "What?" Zara asked. "Each other," the mayor replied simply. Within an hour, the entire town had gathered in the community center for an emergency meeting. Dr. Phillips explained the situation while Jake displayed maps of the surrounding area on a large screen. "So let me get this straight," said Alex Rodriguez. "Some alien bullies want to take our girls back to their planet to brainwash them. And if we don't hand them over, they'll blow up our town?" "That's correct," Dr. Phillips confirmed. "Then I guess we know what we have to do," said Betty Morrison, standing up despite her age. "We protect our family. With what?" demanded Pete Sullivan, an old rancher who usually opposed any plan that cost money. You said they have super weapons. We've got hunting rifles and good intentions. We've got more than that, said a new voice. Everyone turned to see a man in military uniform entering the community center. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with gray hair and steady blue eyes. Commander Kyle Brooks, U.S. Air Force, he introduced himself. We've been monitoring unusual electromagnetic activity in this area. When Dr. Phillips contacted the university, they contacted us. Zara and Lixa shrank back, expecting to be arrested or handed over to the government. Instead, Commander Brooks smiled reassuringly. Relax, ladies. I'm not here to take you anywhere you don't want to go. I've read Dr. Phillips's reports about your situation, and I've seen what you've done for this community during the fire. As far as I'm concerned, you're Americans now, and Americans protect Americans. But the Valorian ships, Lixa began. We'll find this a lot harder than they expect, Commander Brooks replied. We may not have their technology, but we've got something they're not prepared for. What's that? Jake asked. A planet full of people who really don't like bullies, the commander said with a grim smile. Over the next 3 days, Pine Creek transformed into something resembling a military base. Commander Brooks brought in equipment and personnel, but he made it clear that this was still a community effort. Local hunters taught soldiers about the terrain. Lisa and her wildlife sanctuary volunteers helped camouflage equipment using natural materials. Carmen and the other restaurant owners worked around the clock to feed everyone. Dr. Phillips and her university colleagues arrived with every piece of advanced radar and communication equipment they could find. If aliens are really coming, she said, this will be the first official first contact in human history. We need to document everything. But the most important change was in the people themselves. Neighbors who had barely spoken before worked side by side digging defensive positions. Teenagers too young to fight organized supply runs, elderly residents like Frank Morrison, used their workshop skills to build communication equipment. Why? Zara asked Carmen one evening as they prepared food for the volunteers. Why are you all risking so much for us? Carmen paused in her bread making and looked directly at the alien girl she had come to think of as a daughter. Because that's what families do, she said. They protect each other no matter what. But we're not really your family, Lixa said sadly. We're not even the same species. Family isn't about blood or species, Carmen replied. It's about choice. We choose to love you. We choose to protect you. That makes you family. On the 6th day, the Valorian ship appeared. It hung in the sky above Pine Creek like a dark cloud, its smooth metal surface reflecting the afternoon sun. The ship was enormous, easily the size of a football stadium, and completely silent. Commander Brooks studied it through binoculars from the command post they had set up in the high school. I count at least 12 weapon ports, he reported. And that's just what we can see from this angle. A voice boomed from the ship speaking English with a mechanical accent. Primitive inhabitants of Earth Sol 3. You harbor criminals who threaten the stability of civilized space. Surrender the defective individuals Zara 7749 and Lixa 3312, and you will be spared. Mayor Wells picked up the radio microphone Commander Brooks handed her. Her voice, when she responded, was steady and clear. This is Mayor Patricia Wells of Pine Creek, Oregon, United States of America, planet Earth. The individuals you're looking for are citizens of our community and under our protection. We decline your request. There was a long pause before the alien voice responded. You dare refuse the Valorian Empire? We possess weapons that could eliminate your entire settlement in moments. We're aware of that, Mayor Wells replied calmly. But these are our people, and we don't abandon our people. If you want them, you'll have to come down here and take them. Another pause, longer this time. Then, you have 1 hour to reconsider. After that, we will take action. Commander Brooks grinned as he took back the microphone. Well, folks, looks like we're officially at war with an alien empire. Everyone to your positions. As the people of Pine Creek prepared for battle, Zara and Lixa stood together on the roof of the community center, looking up at the ship that had come to take them home. We could still surrender, Lixa said quietly. Save all these people. No, Zara replied, taking her hand. Carmen was right. This is our family now, and families fight together. Above them, the Valorian ship powered up its weapons, ready to teach these primitive humans the price of defying the Empire. But the humans of Pine Creek were ready too, armed with something the Valorians had never encountered before, the absolute determination of people fighting to protect those they love. The hour was almost up. The Valorian strike team landed at exactly 1 hour after their ultimatum, their drop pods crashing into the Pine Creek town square like silver meteors. 12 alien soldiers emerged, wearing black armor that hummed with energy shields and carrying weapons that glowed with contained power. Captain Vex led them, her red eyes scanning the seemingly empty streets with suspicion. She had been Zara's patrol partner before the exile, and she knew her former friend was clever enough to plan an ambush. "Spread out," she ordered her team. "Find the defectives. Kill any humans who interfere." But the humans had learned something about warfare that the Valorians never expected. They didn't fight like soldiers. They fought like a family protecting their home. The first surprise came from above. Danny Martinez and 3 other teenagers dropped nets from the rooftops, tangling 2 Valorian soldiers who had expected resistance to come from ground level. The nets were woven with copper wire that interfered with their energy shields. "Now," shouted Sheriff Maria Santos from her position behind an overturned car. The ambush erupted from every direction, not with advanced weapons but with everything the townspeople could find. Alex Rodriguez threw Molotov cocktails from the fire station roof. Pete Sullivan and his rancher friends used hunting rifles to target the aliens' weapon systems. Lisa Chen released a flock of trained ravens that attacked the Valorians' helmet sensors. The aliens had superior technology, but they had trained to fight armies, not communities. They didn't know how to respond when Mrs. Chen threw boiling soup from her restaurant window, or when Frank Morrison used his workshop tools to jam their communications equipment. Captain Vex fired her plasma rifle at a building where she had seen muzzle flashes, only to discover she had destroyed an empty storefront. The real shooters were in the building next door, having moved through basements connected by Mayor Wells's emergency tunnel system. "This is impossible," she snarled into her communicator. "These primitives fight without coordination or strategy." "No," said a familiar voice behind her. "They fight with love." Vex spun around to see Zara standing in the middle of Main Street, her hands empty, but her violet eyes blazing with defiance. "Zara 7749, Vex said, raising her weapon. "You will surrender immediately." "My name is Zara Martinez," the alien replied. "And I'm home." The captain's weapon charged with a high whine, but before she could fire, Lixa appeared from behind a building flanked by Jake and Carmen. "Let them go, Vex," Lixa said. "They're not your enemy." "They harbor criminals," Vex replied. "Individuals contaminated with forbidden emotions. The Council's orders are clear." "The Council is wrong," Zara said simply. "Impossible. The Council maintains order, prevents chaos. Emotions lead to weakness and destruction. Look around you." Zara gestured to the battle raging through the streets. "Do these humans look weak?" For the first time, Vex seemed to hesitate. She had expected the humans to flee in terror when faced with superior Valorian technology. Instead, she watched an elderly woman provide medical aid to a wounded soldier, completely ignoring the laser fire around her. She saw teenagers coordinating supply runs to fighters pinned down in different buildings. She witnessed a man risk his life to rescue a dog trapped in a burning storefront. "They're fighting for you," Vex said, confused. "Why would they risk death for exiles?" "Because they choose to," Lixa replied. "Love isn't a weakness, Vex. It's a choice that makes people stronger." The battle turned when young Danny Martinez was hit by a stray plasma bolt while trying to reach a wounded firefighter. The teenager collapsed in the street, his leg badly burned. Without thinking, Zara ran to help him, her Valorian medical training taking over. She knelt beside Danny, using techniques her people had developed over centuries to heal his injuries. As she worked, tears streamed down her face. On Valoria, medics were taught to remain emotionally detached from patients. Caring too much was considered a professional failure. But here, surrounded by humans who had risked everything to protect her, Zara couldn't help but care. She wept openly as she saved the boy's life, showing Captain Vex exactly what emotional contamination looked like. "You're crying," Vex said, lowering her weapon slightly. "Yes," Zara replied, not looking up from her patient. "I'm crying because I love him. Because his parents love him. Because everyone in this town loves him enough to fight for his future." Captain Vex stared at this display of forbidden emotion. On Valoria, she had been taught that such feelings led to chaos and weakness. But Danny was alive because Zara cared enough to save him. The town was fighting because they cared enough to protect their neighbors. "I don't understand," Vex whispered. Then watch, Carmen said, kneeling beside Zara to help with Danny's injuries. Watch what love can do. The turning point came when Sub-Commander Rix, one of Vex's most trusted soldiers, suddenly stopped firing his weapon. He was watching Frank Morrison, who had been hit by plasma fire while defending the library where children were sheltering. Betty Morrison ran into the crossfire to reach her wounded husband, completely ignoring the danger. She held Frank's hand and spoke softly to him, her love so obvious that even an alien could see it. 50 years, Rix heard her whisper. 50 years and I'm not ready to let you go. Something cracked inside the sub-commander's carefully controlled mind. He had been alone his entire life, as all Valorians were supposed to be. He had never seen two people choose to stay together through decades, never witnessed someone risk their life simply because they couldn't bear to lose someone they loved. "Captain," he said slowly, removing his helmet to reveal a young face marked by confusion and wonder. I think we might be wrong about these emotions." Vex turned to stare at her subordinate. "Sub-Commander, report to medical immediately. You're showing signs of contamination." "Maybe I am," Rix replied. "But look around you, Captain. Look at what these contaminated feelings have created." Other Valorian soldiers began to lower their weapons as they witnessed the humans' response to the crisis. They saw neighbors helping strangers, young people protecting the elderly, and families staying together even when it would have been safer to run. Dr. Phillips emerged from the community center, supporting an injured Valorian soldier who had been separated from his team. Instead of leaving him to die, she had treated his wounds and given him water. "Why?" the soldier asked her weakly. "Why help an enemy?" "You're not my enemy," Dr. Phillips replied. "You're just confused about what strength really means." Captain Vex felt something she had never experienced before: doubt. Everything she had been taught about emotional contamination was being challenged by what she witnessed in Pine Creek. The humans weren't fighting because they were ordered to. They were fighting because they chose to protect people they loved. Their emotions didn't make them weak. They made them willing to face impossible odds. "Captain," her ship's communication system crackled. "Status report. Have you secured the defectives?" Vex looked at Zara, who was still treating wounded humans with tears on her cheeks. She looked at Lixa, who was helping elderly residents to safety while bombs fell around them. She looked at the humans who had chosen to fight an alien empire rather than abandon two refugees. For the first time in her life, Captain Vex understood what the forbidden emotion of love actually was, not a weakness, but the greatest possible strength. "Command," she said into her communicator, her voice steady despite the revolution happening in her mind. "The defectives have been eliminated. Mission complete." It was a lie, but it was a lie told for love. As the Valorian soldiers began to stand down, many of them looking around with new understanding, the people of Pine Creek slowly emerged from their defensive positions. The battle was over, but the real victory was just beginning. Several Valorian soldiers approached humans they had been fighting minutes before, awkwardly attempting communication. Sub-Commander Rix helped Dr. Phillips carry wounded civilians to the medical station. Captain Vex walked slowly toward Zara and Lixa, who stood together holding hands in the middle of the damaged street. "I don't know what this feeling is," Vex said quietly, "but I think I want to learn." "It's called hope," Zara replied, smiling through her tears. "And you're welcome to stay and discover what it means." Above them, the Valorian ship continued to hover, waiting for orders that would never come. In the streets of Pine Creek, two species that had been enemies minutes before began the slow process of learning to understand each other. And at the center of it all, two alien girls who had been exiled for the crime of love realized that their punishment had become the greatest gift they could have received. They had found a home where love made people stronger, not weaker. Where family was chosen, not assigned. Where hope could overcome even the greatest odds. The war was over. The real story was just beginning. 6 months after the battle that changed everything, Pine Creek had become a very different place. The small town now hosted the first official alien-human cultural exchange program in Earth's history. Though most of the world still didn't know it existed, Captain Vex, who now went by her chosen human name, Victoria, worked alongside Dr. Phillips to establish communication protocols between the two species. She had officially resigned from the Valorian Empire and requested asylum on Earth, along with 7 other soldiers who had experienced their own emotional awakening during the battle. "I spent 40 years believing that emotions were a disease," Victoria said during one of her recorded interviews with Dr. Phillips. "But in one day, I saw humans do impossible things because they chose to love each other. How do you call that weakness?" Sub-Commander Rix, now known as Rick, had become Jake's deputy at the Forest Service. His alien strength and enhanced senses made him naturally gifted at wilderness rescue operations. But it was his newly discovered capacity for compassion that made him truly effective. "He saved 3 lost hikers last week," Jake reported to Commander Brooks during one of their monthly briefings. But more than that, he sat with them for hours afterward, making sure they weren't traumatized by the experience. 6 months ago, he was programmed to feel nothing. Now he's one of the most caring people I know. The Valorian ship still hung in orbit above Earth, but it was no longer a threat. Victoria had convinced the crew that the defectives had been eliminated, and that Earth was too primitive to be worth conquering. Most of the crew believed this lie, but a few had begun asking uncomfortable questions about the nature of their society. These questions were exactly what Zara and Lixa had hoped for. Using their repaired communication system, they had begun broadcasting coded messages to other Valorians, who might be hiding their own forbidden emotions. The messages were simple. "There is a place where love is not weakness. There is a place where feelings make you stronger. There is hope." The responses started slowly. A scientist from a research station reported strange equipment malfunctions that were actually attempts to escape. A transport pilot began making unauthorized detours to uninhabited planets, claiming navigational errors. A medical officer started treating emotional symptoms with fake medications that actually did nothing, allowing patients to keep their feelings while appearing cured. "It's working," Zara told the assembled town council during one of their evening meetings. "The resistance is small, but it's growing. Every Valorian who learns that emotions are a choice instead of a disease becomes someone who can help others choose freedom." The transformation wasn't limited to aliens. The humans of Pine Creek had also changed in ways both subtle and profound. Carmen Martinez had expanded her bakery into a full restaurant, serving both human and adapted Valorian cuisine. She employed 3 of the defected alien soldiers, teaching them not just cooking techniques but the art of hospitality. "Food is love," she explained to Rick as he struggled to understand why humans cared so much about meal presentation. "When you feed someone, you're taking care of them. You're showing that their well-being matters to you." Rick considered this carefully. On Valoria, food was fuel. "Nothing more." "Here," Carmen replied. "Food is family." Lisa Chen had partnered with Victoria to establish the Pine Creek Research Center, where human and Valorian scientists worked together to solve problems that neither species could handle alone. Their first major project involved developing drought-resistant crops using Valorian agricultural technology, combined with Earth's biodiversity. Individually, "Our species have limitations," Lisa explained to a group of visiting researchers from the university, "but together we can do things neither of us imagined possible." Dr. Phillips had become something of a celebrity in academic circles, though she was careful to protect Pine Creek's secret. Her papers on theoretical xenolinguistics and cross-species communication models were revolutionizing how humans thought about the possibility of alien contact if we ever do meet beings from other worlds. She wrote in her most famous paper, "Our success will depend not on our technology or our weapons, but on our ability to find common ground in the things that matter most: family, community, and hope." Commander Brooks had established Pine Creek as an unofficial testing ground for humanity's first contact protocols. His reports to his superiors focused on theoretical scenarios and civilian emergency preparedness, but he was actually developing guidelines for how Earth might handle actual alien refugees in the future. "The key," he told his military colleagues, "is treating newcomers as individuals with their own stories and needs, not as representatives of an entire species. Fear makes people dangerous. Acceptance makes them allies." But the most important changes were in Zara and Lixa themselves. On a warm spring evening, they stood together in the community center, where they had first found refuge 6 months earlier. The building had been decorated with flowers and lights for their wedding ceremony, the first official alien-human wedding in Earth's history. Mayor Wells, ordained online specifically for this occasion, smiled as she addressed the gathered crowd of humans and aliens who had become family. "We are here today to celebrate something that two different worlds tried to tell us was impossible," she said. "But Zara and Lixa have proven that love doesn't recognize species or planets, or the boundaries that others try to impose. Love simply is." Carmen had made the wedding cake, a beautiful creation that combined earth flowers with Valorian crystal formations. Danny Martinez, fully recovered from his injuries, served as one of the ushers, proudly wearing a suit that matched his alien sister's wedding colors. Frank and Betty Morrison, now in their 70s but still deeply in love, provided the rings, simple bands made from metal salvaged from the original crash pod. 51 years for us," Betty whispered to Frank as they watched the ceremony. "And they're just getting started." Victoria stood with the other Valorian refugees, many of them seeing their first human wedding. Several were openly crying, still amazed by their ability to feel such powerful emotions. "I don't understand why this makes me feel so happy," Rick said to Dr. Phillips. "That's called joy," she replied. "It's one of the best emotions humans have discovered." As Zara and Lixa exchanged vows, they spoke not just about their love for each other, but about their gratitude for the community that had taught them what love could really mean. "You showed us that being different doesn't make us broken," Zara said, addressing the assembled crowd. "You showed us that families are made by choice, not by genetics. You showed us that home isn't a place, it's the people who choose to stand with you. On Valoria we were criminals," Lixa added. "Here we learned to be human, not in species but in spirit. You taught us that the best things in life are the ones you choose to fight for." After the ceremony, as the celebration continued into the night, Commander Brooks received a priority message on his secure communication system. "Sir," his aide reported, "we're getting unusual readings from deep space sensors, multiple ships heading toward Earth, but they're not military formations. The signatures match the Valorian refugees' ship designs but smaller, individual craft." Brooks smiled as he looked out at the party where humans and aliens danced together under the stars. "How many ships?" 17 confirmed, sir. More appearing every hour. "Looks like Pine Creek is about to get bigger," Brooks said. "Better call Mayor Wells. We're going to need more guest rooms." The ships were exactly what they appeared to be, Valorian refugees fleeing their rigid society, guided by the coded messages Zara and Lixa had been broadcasting. Each ship carried individuals or small groups who had chosen freedom over conformity, love over control. They arrived over the following weeks, landing in the forests around Pine Creek like seeds of change. Some were couples who had hidden their relationships for years. Others were artists who had secretly created beauty in a society that valued only function. A few were simply individuals who had always felt different and had finally found the courage to seek a place where different was accepted. Each new arrival was met the same way. Zara and Lixa had been, with curiosity instead of fear, with offers of help instead of demands for submission. Pine Creek expanded rapidly but carefully, with human and alien residents working together to build new homes and establish new businesses. The town became a living example of what was possible when different species chose cooperation over conflict. Dr. Phillips established a school where human and alien children learned together, discovering that the curiosity and creativity of youth transcended species boundaries. Victoria and Rick started a counseling program for refugees dealing with the emotional trauma of leaving everything they had known behind. Jake and Carmen opened their home to a steady stream of newly arrived aliens, becoming unofficial foster parents to dozens of individuals, learning to navigate their newfound freedom. 1 year after the battle that started it all, Zara and Lixa stood on the hill overlooking their adopted town, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and purple. Below them, the lights of Pine Creek twinkled like earthbound stars, each one representing a life that had been changed by the radical idea that love was a choice worth making. "Do you ever miss Valoria?" Lixa asked.